The Young and the Restless Spoilers. The final confession. Claire's letter to Victoria. Claire stood by the rain-streaked window of her modest apartment in Genoa City, feeling the weight of years of secrets and half-truths pressed down upon her soul. The city that once promised hope and reinvention had long since morphed into a labyrinth of deception, betrayal, and unbearable guilt. In that quiet, desolate moment, she made a decision. Her life in Genoa was over, and she would no longer allow herself to be imprisoned by lies. With trembling fingers, she reached for her journal and began to write what would become her final goodbye, a letter that would shatter the hearts of those who had loved her, but also set her free from the chains of her own falsehoods. For as long as Claire could remember, she had lived a life burdened by secrets. Every smile, every tear, every whispered word had been laced with a hidden truth that only she knew. Now, with her world crumbling around her, she realized that continuing to fabricate a life would only lead to more pain, more destruction, and inevitably, a revelation that would devastate everyone she held dear. The catalyst for this moment of reckoning had been the tragic death of Jordan, a loss so profound that it ignited an explosion of raw emotion within her, shattering her carefully constructed facade and leaving her questioning the very purpose of her existence. In her heart, Claire knew that the lies she had built her life upon were unsustainable. The truth, however painful, was a path toward liberation. It was not just the weight of the deception but also the burden of pretending to be someone she was not. She was not Victoria's daughter by blood, nor did she feel worthy of the love and care Victoria had so selflessly bestowed upon her over the years. The realization that she had been living a lie, wrapped in a veneer of familial closeness and affection, pushed her to the brink. She had deceived not only others but also herself, clinging to a role that was never truly hers. The letter, intended for Victoria, the one person who had always seen through the masks and cared for her with unwavering devotion, was to be her swan song. Claire wanted Victoria to understand why she could no longer maintain the charade, why she had chosen to leave silently without any more excuses or justifications. In that letter lay the secrets of her life, the truths that had festered in the darkest corners of her mind, and the confession of her deepest vulnerabilities. Below is an excerpt of the letter that Claire wrote, a final attempt to reconcile her past and offer a glimpse of the shattered soul behind the facade. Dear Victoria, I write these words with a heavy heart and trembling hands, for they carry the truth of a life I can no longer sustain. Genoa City has become a prison, a maze of lies, secrets, and regret that has suffocated me for far too long. Every day I wake up with the crushing weight of the truth, a truth that I have hidden even from those who love me most. I have deceived you, and I have deceived myself. I once believed that by embracing a false identity, I could find a place among you, a family that offered warmth and love in a world otherwise cold and indifferent. But in truth, I am not the daughter you believed me to be. I am not bound by the bloodline or the past that you so lovingly cherished. I have worn this mask, hoping that one day it might grant me the acceptance and love that I so desperately craved, but it has only led to a lifetime of torment and betrayal. The death of Jordan shattered me in ways I never thought possible. His loss exposed the fragility of the life I had constructed, a life built on secrets, half-truths, and unfulfilled promises. In the wake of his passing, I found myself questioning everything. Why have I persisted in this charade? Why have I allowed myself to live a lie when the truth, however painful, was waiting in the wings? I realize now that I have been running from my own reflection, from the person I truly am, and in doing so, I have lost myself completely. I can no longer allow this burden to define me. I cannot continue to hurt those I love by living in a state of constant deception. It is not fair to you, to Cole, or to anyone else who has come to care for me. That is why I have chosen to step away quietly. I will not interfere with Cole's life or the future he envisions with you. He deserves every opportunity for happiness, free from the complications that my lies have woven into our lives. Victoria, you have been my rock, the person who has offered me unconditional love and understanding despite knowing only the surface of who I am. I have always known that you cared for me more deeply than anyone else ever could. Yet, I now see that by clinging to a role that is not mine, I have betrayed the very essence of who you believed I was, a cherished daughter, a trusted friend, a beacon of hope in our tangled lives. I write this letter not only as an apology but as a final farewell. I can no longer bear the constant pressure of living a life that is bound to be exposed sooner or later. I have grown weary of the endless masquerade, and I am finally ready to accept the consequences of the truth. My departure is not a rejection of the love you have given me, rather, it is an acknowledgement that I have become unworthy of it. I do not deserve the compassion, the care, or the belonging that you have so generously offered. As I leave Genoa City behind, I carry with me the memories of our laughter, our shared tears, and the moments of quiet understanding that made everything seem bearable, even if only for a little while. I hope that one day, when the pain of this revelation has subsided, you will understand that my decision comes from a place of deep sorrow and a desperate need for honesty. Goodbye, Victoria. May you find the happiness and peace that I have been too afraid to claim for myself. With all the remorse and love in my heart, Claire. In writing this letter, Claire poured out every hidden truth and every moment of regret. It was not simply an admission of guilt, it was a desperate cry for freedom, a final act of honesty that she hoped might, in some small way, mend the broken pieces of her life. Every word was a testament to the inner battles she had fought, the identity crises that had plagued her, and the crushing realization that a life built on falsehoods was destined to crumble under its own weight. In Genoa City, where every corner echoed with memories of both joy and sorrow, Claire's letter was more than just a farewell. It was a manifesto against a lifetime of pretense, a declaration that truth, no matter how painful, was worth the inevitable heartache it would bring. She chose to spare Cole the entanglements of her own self-deception, allowing him to continue his life with Victoria, pursuing the dreams and desires that were rightfully his. In doing so, she hoped that both of them might find solace and healing in a future unmarred by the shadows of her past. For Victoria, the letter would be a double-edged sword, a source of immense grief for the daughter she believed she had, and yet also a bittersweet reminder of the love and care that had defined their relationship. The revelation that Claire was not truly hers, that she had masqueraded as a beloved daughter while hiding an identity that did not belong, was a betrayal that would take time to heal. Yet, within the painful lines of the letter lay a truth that could no longer be ignored, a truth that might someday pave the way for forgiveness, understanding, and ultimately, the possibility of redemption. Claire's final act was not one of cowardice, but of profound courage. To confront the person she had become and to face the inevitable consequences of a lifetime of deceit required a strength that few possess. As she sealed the envelope containing the letter, a solitary tear traced a path down her cheek, one that carried the weight of unspoken apologies, shattered dreams, and a desperate longing for freedom. In that moment, Claire embraced the notion that sometimes, the only way to truly live is to let go of the lies that bind us and to step into the light of an unvarnished, painful truth. In the quiet aftermath of her decision, as the rain continued to fall outside, Claire felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, in the long run, this act of honesty would be the first step toward a life where truth reigned supreme over deception, a life where she could finally be at peace with herself, even if it meant enduring the heartbreak of those she left behind. And so, with a heavy heart and a soul unburdened by lies at last, Claire set forth on the uncertain path of redemption, leaving behind a legacy of truth that would forever echo in the hearts of those who had loved her. Between shadows and light, Claire's journey of redemption. Victoria had always known, deep in her heart, that Claire was never truly her biological daughter. Yet, none of that ever mattered to her. All Victoria ever wanted was to share a life with Claire, to hold her close and build new memories together. Now, as she sat alone in her quiet room in Genoa City, tears streaming silently down her face, Victoria's only hope was that Cole would find their daughter and bring her home immediately. The pain in Victoria's eyes spoke of a love so fierce that even the harshest truths could never diminish it. But where was Claire? Why wasn't she returning to the only place she'd ever known as home? Instead of coming back to Genoa City, Claire had chosen to run, a decision born out of a deep-seated need to escape the suffocating weight of her secrets. Some whispered that she had returned to her long-forgotten hometown, a place where she once believed solace awaited her. Yet, the bitter irony was that the warmth of that past was marred by an unbearable loss. Jordan's mother was gone, leaving behind an emptiness that threatened to swallow her whole. The breaking point: Claire's departure from Genoa City was not a spontaneous act of defiance. It was the culmination of years spent entangled in a web of deception and guilt. The city, once a beacon of promise and opportunity, had transformed into a relentless maze of falsehoods and hidden truths. After the shattering death of Jordan, a loss that had ripped open old wounds and forced her to confront the truth, Claire realized she could no longer sustain a life built on lies. Every fabricated moment, every stolen identity, had become an unbearable burden. With a trembling hand, she penned a farewell letter to Victoria, confessing her inner turmoil and bidding a bittersweet goodbye to the life she had known. Yet, even as she left behind the familiar streets of Genoa City, Claire's heart was not at peace. The echo of Victoria's unconditional love still resonated within her, a reminder of a family she had chosen to be part of, even if it was based on a false premise. The truth was that Claire was running not only from the imminent threat of exposure but also from an internal battlefield where the line between who she was and who she pretended to be had become irrevocably blurred. The long road to a forgotten past. After sending that final letter, a letter laden with remorse, longing, and the raw honesty of a soul in torment, Claire boarded a late-night train. The rhythmic clatter of the wheels on the tracks became the soundtrack to her journey into the unknown. As the city lights of Genoa City faded into the distance, each mile seemed to peel away a layer of the life she had meticulously constructed. But the escape was bittersweet. The farther she ventured from the city, the more she was confronted by memories of a time when her identity was simpler, unburdened by the incessant pressure of living a lie. Her destination was her childhood hometown, a place that once cradled her in a comforting embrace of familiarity. However, the town that had once been a sanctuary now felt like a realm of ghosts. The streets whispered reminders of a past filled with both innocent dreams and heart-wrenching losses. In those quiet corners of memory, Claire sought the remnants of a self she had long suppressed, hoping that a return to her roots might offer a pathway to healing. The unseen anchor, the loss of Jordan's mother. Yet, even this return to her origins was marred by an irreparable absence. Jordan's mother, a woman who had provided Claire with a sense of maternal warmth and guidance, was no longer there. For years, Jordan's mother had been an unwitting anchor in Claire's turbulent life, offering a semblance of stability and unconditional acceptance. With her gone, the void that was left behind was profound and all-encompassing. Claire now faced the heart-wrenching reality that the one pillar of support she had clung to in moments of despair had vanished forever. This loss compounded Claire's inner conflict. She was caught between the allure of reclaiming a semblance of home and the overwhelming dread of facing the painful truths that awaited her there. The prospect of rebuilding her life without the nurturing presence of Jordan's mother seemed almost insurmountable. How was she to forge a new path when the very foundation of her emotional world had crumbled? The grief was a constant companion, a reminder that every step forward was tainted by sorrow. Victoria's desperate wait back in Genoa City, Victoria's anguish was palpable. Despite knowing the truth about Claire's origins, her love remained steadfast and unwavering. In her tearful vigil, Victoria's mind was a whirlwind of memories. The laughter they had shared, the quiet moments of understanding, and the dreams they had dared to dream together. Every tick of the clock, every muted sound in the house, intensified her longing for Claire's return. Victoria's plea was simple yet desperate: bring her home. She had already come to accept that the biological connection was irrelevant compared to the bond of love and shared experience. All she wanted was to embrace Claire and assure her that, regardless of past deceptions, she was cherished beyond measure. In her heart, Victoria believed that home was not defined by blood but by the depth of love and commitment, a belief that had driven her to ask Cole, with urgency and trembling hope, to search for Claire without delay. The fugitive heart for Claire, the decision to run was not about abandoning the love that had sustained her for so long, it was about escaping a relentless internal storm. Every mile traveled away from Genoa City was both a liberation and a burden. In the solitude of long, winding roads, Claire grappled with a myriad of questions. Why had she pretended for so long? What was the cost of a life steeped in falsehoods? And, perhaps most painfully, could she ever reclaim a true sense of self in the absence of those she had lost? As she wandered through the familiar yet estranged landscapes of her hometown, memories of a life before Genoa City danced before her eyes. There was a time when the future was a canvas of endless possibility, painted with the vibrant colors of hope and ambition. Now, however, that canvas was streaked with the grays of regret and the dark shadows of grief. Without Jordan's mother, the woman who had been a guiding light, Claire felt as though she were navigating a world without direction. The pain of loss mingled with the burden of her past deceptions, leaving her at a crossroads where every decision felt irrevocable. The inescapable dilemma, the questions loomed large in the silence of her journey. Where is Claire now? Why is she not coming home, where love and acceptance awaited? The answer lay in the tumultuous battle within her, a conflict between the desire to escape and the longing for belonging. Claire was running not just from the potential fallout of her secrets, but from the fear of confronting the person she had become. She believed that by fleeing, she might delay the inevitable reckoning with a past that refused to be hidden. In her eyes, returning to Genoa City meant facing the full force of her deceptions, of exposing every lie that had woven the fabric of her identity. And so, she chose to retreat into the shadows of a hometown that once offered refuge, even though it now brimmed with painful reminders of everything she had lost. The journey forward yet, amid the darkness and despair, a fragile glimmer of hope persisted. Deep within her, Claire sensed that this exodus, this painful departure from the life she had known, could be the first step toward true freedom. Even as she navigated the lonely roads of her past, she clung to the belief that someday, she might piece together a new identity from the remnants of her shattered existence. Without the comforting presence of Jordan's mother and with the weight of secrets still pressing down on her, the road ahead was uncertain and fraught with peril. In this quiet, tumultuous space between the life she once knew and the future that beckoned, Claire's journey became one of profound self-discovery. It was a quest not merely to escape the consequences of her lies, but to seek out the unvarnished truth about who she truly was. Could she redefine herself without the crutch of borrowed identities? Might she find a way to honor the love that Victoria had always extended to her, even in the absence of a traditional family bond? A glimmer of hope amid the tears. Victoria's voice echoed in her mind with every step she took. I knew you weren't my daughter by blood, but you have always been my daughter in heart. That memory, tender and bittersweet, fueled a deep internal conflict. The love that Victoria had so freely given was a beacon, even as Claire wrestled with guilt and uncertainty. Yet, the fear of being exposed, of having her true self laid bare before those who loved her, kept her moving further away from the only sanctuary she had ever known. Cole, driven by a mix of desperation and determination, scoured every corner of Genoa City, each call on his phone a prayer for news of Claire's whereabouts. His heart ached with every moment that passed without word from her, a silent testament to the love and hope that bound him to both Victoria and the daughter they believed in. His mission was clear: to bridge the chasm between a runaway heart and the family that longed for her return.